You criticized Donald Trump for interfering in matters that undermine the independence of Brazilian institutions, but you were also criticized for visiting former Argentine President Cristina Kirchner, who has now been convicted of corruption, and for holding a sign defending her freedom. How do you respond to these accusations of having interfered in the internal affairs of the sovereign country of Argentina?
With great firmness. A president neither owns the truth nor has an ideological relationship with others. I never had an ideological relationship. I talk to the president of the country, whoever he may be. He was elected by the people and needs to talk. I talk to everyone. I have nothing to discuss with him now. In fact, he gives us no reason to talk to him at all. After we have a deep discussion about what will happen, we have time to discuss, we have time to talk, we have time to listen to the business people. And then, when the time comes that it's necessary to talk, you can be sure that I won't have any problem picking up the phone and calling, even if he rudely doesn't want to answer me. I take that risk, but in any case, if it's necessary, I'll do it without any problem.
So for now, nothing, right?
Nothing for now.
The 50% tariff imposed by Donald Trump on Brazilian products may seem like just a trade dispute, but behind the scenes, it set off an alert in the armed forces. When billions of dollars stop coming into the economy, the entire national defense system feels the effects. Machines stop being maintained, planes stop being modernized, and strategic projects simply come to a halt. The current Brazilian government has directly contributed to this adverse scenario. Instead of consolidating relations with strategic partners, the current president chose to antagonize the United States. From welcoming Iranian warships on national territory to publicly criticizing Israel's response against Hamas, the government's actions have increased diplomatic friction. The trigger for the crisis was the rapprochement with authoritarian regimes and statements that confront American interests. Welcome to life in the barracks. Brazilian exports to the United States totaled billions of dollars in sectors directly linked to technology, engineering, and defense. Products such as aircraft, engines, auto parts, electronics, and even wood, which are fundamental to strengthening the logistics structure of defense, are now losing competitiveness. The drop in sales means less investment, less innovation, and greater dependence on other countries. The tariff hike imposed by Donald Trump is the result of a series of misguided political decisions by the current Brazilian government, which has distanced itself from strategic allies and adopted ideological stances that directly affect commercial and diplomatic relations. The visit of Vice President Geraldo Alckmin to Iran to represent Brazil at the inauguration of the new president, standing alongside the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, created tension with Western powers, especially with the United States. The visit of the Brazilian president to former Argentine President Cristina Kirchner, who was convicted of corruption, also generated controversy, reflecting a choice of alliances with leftist populist leaders and regimes with histories of authoritarianism. In addition, the suspension of military equipment purchases from Israel and the alignment with Nicolas Maduro's regime demonstrated a stance that, instead of prioritizing national security, favors ideological interests, which has weakened Brazil's strategic position in the world. These diplomatic mistakes, combined with disorganized foreign policy, have created an environment of vulnerability, resulting in direct commercial retaliation with the imposition of heavy tariffs, which now harm the entire country's economy and directly impact the Brazilian defense industry. Embraer, for example, had 63% of its aircraft exports destined for the North American market. Now, with the heavy tariffs, this flow is interrupted or drastically reduced, directly impacting the capacity for research, development, and modernization of Brazilian military aviation. International cooperation projects are also at risk. The machinery, engines, and equipment industry exported almost $1.5 billion to the United States. It's precisely this industrial base that supplies components for defense, such as military generators, radars, and tactical mobilization structures. Companies like WEG are warning about layoffs and slower production due to the tariff hikes' impact. Semi-finished iron and steel products, which are essential for the manufacture of armored vehicles, military vessels, and coastal defense structures, now face barriers that undermine their presence in the international market. More than 70% of exports from this sector went to the United States. The construction of ships and submarines depends directly on these inputs, and delays in the production chain can compromise the surveillance of the Blue Amazon. The Brazilian Navy has identified vulnerabilities in material replacement, hindering rapid response in conflicts. The electronics sector, responsible for embedded technologies in aircraft, communication systems, and missiles, was also affected. With the North American market accounting for more than half of exports, domestic companies lose scale and the ability to reinvest in innovation. Forest products, such as those used in the manufacture of ballistic panels and military housing structures, will lose competitiveness to countries like Canada and Chile. Suzano, which is the largest pulp manufacturer in the world with 15% of its revenue coming from the United States, is already projecting significant losses. Oil, despite having some market flexibility, still represents a billion-dollar volume of exports. If the heavy tariffs hit this sector hard, Brazil will lose liquidity to invest in energy infrastructure that directly serves military installations. Petrobras, which has strategic logistics with the Brazilian Navy in several regions of the country, may have to redirect shipments and review contracts. The drastic reduction in exports compromises revenue collection, and consequently, public investments in defense. Projects such as the nuclear submarine, the Gripen fighter jets, and CISGAS, the Brazilian Coast Monitoring System, may be postponed or limited. The armed forces are operating at capacity in border missions, drug trafficking operations, and maritime surveillance. Without a budget for equipment upgrades, wear and tear intensifies and compromises national security. With international trust at a low, cooperation agreements are stalled. Military exchanges, joint training, and coalition operations lose momentum, and so Brazil becomes increasingly isolated on the global stage. Trump's tariff hike is not just an economic retaliation. It's a clear message that Brazil needs to reconsider its geopolitical stance and strengthen its defense with reliable allies and well-defined interests. On Vida No Quartel, you stay updated with all the latest in the military world. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos that's appearing on your screen. Onward, fighters, until next time.